So let's record our formula for the Pythagorean theorem one more time. So we have two legs of the triangle, A and B. They can be called any letters actually that you want, but in this case they're labeled A and B. So we need to remember that it's A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared, the hypotenuse squared. Sometimes you'll see it written as C squared equals A squared plus B squared. That's the same. Okay. For our first example here, all I'm asking you to do is identify the hypotenuse. So remember, the hypotenuse is the longest side of the triangle. Sometimes you can't tell, especially like in these examples where we don't have the measurements. So you can recognize that the hypotenuse is always opposite, the opposite side of the triangle from the 90 degrees. So our hypotenuse here would be this side here. In question B, our hypotenuse across from the 90 degrees, you can always draw an arrow, would be the side that is X. And for question C, across from the 90 degrees, it is side K. Now we're going to take a look at some examples where we find the unknown length. So this first one, I can see that I have leg 1 here, leg 2 here, and this is my hypotenuse, which is C. And that's the one we're actually solving for. Bless you. So we're going to set up with our formula first. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. And A in this case is 8. So I have 8 squared. B is 6. So I have 6 squared. And I'm solving for C. So I'm just going to leave that as C squared. Then I'm going to do my calculations. So I have 8 squared, which is 64, plus 6 squared, which is 36, is equal to C squared. Then I have, when I add those two together, 100 is equal to C squared. And to get just C, we're going to have to square root both sides. So I square root 100, and that equals C. So then 10 is equal to C. So I'm going to go back to the question and recognize that the side lengths are in centimeters. So I'm going to put a conclusion, therefore C is equal to 10 centimeters. Okay, let's take a look at question B here. First thing I'm going to notice is that my hypotenuse is there, or so you can label it as, H if you want, or you can call it C, and then my other two sides will be legs. So I'm going to call this leg A and this one leg B. So again, I know that A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. A is 5, so I'm going to replace A with 5. B is Y, so I'm going to replace B with Y, so I have Y squared there. And C is 8, so I have 8 squared. So I have 5 squared plus Y squared equals 8 squared. Now I'm going to go ahead and square those numbers or apply those exponents. So I have 5 squared, which is 25, plus Y squared is equal to 64. That's 8 squared. I'm going to move the 25, to the other side of the equation, which means I'm going to subtract. So I have Y squared is equal to 64 minus 25. Or you can think about it as subtracting 25 from both sides. That's fine. So I end up with Y squared is equal to 39. And to get just Y, I would square root both sides. So I end up with Y being approximately 6.2. And I look back at the question and my units are inches. So that's my answer there. Okay. Now let's take a look at an application problem. So this question says, how high off the ground is Ollie the owl? And we are going to go ahead and draw our right angled triangle in here, which represents the vertical height of the owl. And I'm going to go ahead and label a variable x, which will represent that height. So I'm going to let x represent the height of the owl. And now that I have that right angled triangle, I can label my legs and my hypotenuse. So that's my hypotenuse over here. And so because that's my hypotenuse, I'm going to label it C. Here's a leg, I'll label it A. Here's another leg, I'll label that B. So I'll start by writing my formula. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. I'll sub in my values. So A is actually my variable X. B is 12, so I have 12 squared, and C is 25, so I have 25 squared. So then I'm going to square those values. So I have X squared plus 12 squared, which is 144, is equal to 625. I want to get the X by itself, so I'm going to move that 144 to the other side, or subtract both sides by 144. So I get X squared is equal to 625 minus 144, which is equal to 481. Then to get just X, I need to square root both sides of that equation. So I have X is equal to root 481. I use my calculator to help me with that, and I get approximately 21.9. And so that's my answer. I'm going to take a look at my units, their feet, but because it's an application problem, I'm going to go ahead and write a conclusion that answers the question that was posed to me, which is how high off the ground is the owl? So therefore, Ollie is approximately 21.9 feet off the ground. And that's it. So you can go ahead to start your practice, and that practice is being submitted into the Dropbox.